So it's not every day I meet another fellow alpha male, but now it's in your title, alpha male. Like, as an alpha male, I always pride myself on not having to say it. So why do you have to, was that given to you? Like, how did you become the alpha male?
Tyrus, it's a really good question. Look, I've always been very masculine. Right. I love steak. Okay. I love good-looking women.
And you're Australian.
I obviously have a great accent, which helps me in a great number of different things.
Right.
But look, I put alpha male down there because you're not allowed to be an alpha male anymore. You're not allowed to be masculine anymore. The politically correct, the left, they like to kind of squelch us. And I've found...
Are you saying that the woke have a problem with men?
Yes, big time. Huge. It's a massive revelation, I know. But they do, Tyrus, they do. And so for me, to badge myself as an alpha male, I find that, number one, it's an accurate description. But number two, the fringe benefit is I get to upset all these people that I don't really have a lot of time for.
Do you think if they actually knew what it meant to be an actual alpha male, they would have that attitude? Because an alpha male not only is the one that when someone breaks into the house, he protects the house, but he's also the one that teaches your son to open doors for women. He's also the one that teaches daughters how to know when they're safe and unsafe. An alpha male has a lot of responsibilities, the biggest being protection.
Certainly does. Yeah.
And that seems to be lost.
And you would think, why wouldn't they want someone protecting them? Why wouldn't they want strong men?
Well, only when needed.
Only when needed, yeah.
It's like the same thing with the police.
The whole thing is, Tyrus, that they really don't have an interest, I've found, in... They want to make men out to be totally unnecessary.
Now, I'm toxic masculinity, but I wear that as a badge. Yeah. I don't feel like getting tattoos anymore, but if I was, I would get a toxic
masculinity.
Yes. Because
what body part would you get it on?
Well, everyone needs to see it, so probably my forehead.
Okay.
I feel like it needs to be maybe a nice toxic down on the side, maybe take the beard off a little bit. Because it goes back to the same thing. Being a, quote, man, an American man, or the American way of life man, seems to be so threatening. But it hasn't always kind of been like that for us. Like, it's a thankless job. So it's not like the woke not liking it is nothing new, because it's a dirty job and someone has to do it. But you do it because you are an alpha male. You know that you're going to have to be the one to do things. You get your hands dirty where other people don't. Isn't that really the point?
It is the point. It is the point. What I'm trying to do, Tyrus, is I'm trying to get every young man to become the best version of themselves. I'm trying to give young men in America their confidence back. Because if there's one thing that I've come to realize, I've built up this massive following, more than 3 million, mostly Gen Z males. Young men are doing it tougher than they ever have before, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But if you look, Tyrus, at high school dropout rates, record highs for young men. If you look at college admission rates or college application rates, record low for men. The military is telling us that they just can't recruit enough right now. Young men have lost their ability to socially communicate because everything's on the phone. There's this passport bros movement. They're going to other countries to go and find women. And all of it is really unfortunate, because I love America. And I wasn't born in this country. I came as quickly as I could. I like to joke that I was an American trapped inside an Australian body for the first 32 years of my life. And I want America to stay like that. But no great civilization has ever survived without strong men.
No, well, it's usually the third generation that ends it.
Yeah, precisely.
Now, I've been to Australia probably about, I think, 5 or 6 times, and I've always loved when I've gone over there. What's the big difference between being an Australian and American? What did America offer you that a lot of people, because when they think of Australia, they think of places like Australia, Britain, they kind of think it's pretty much the same as America.
They do.
But there's a slight difference, though.
Slight, yet major.
Yes.
So in Australia, you can't colour outside of the lines and not be punished. In Australia, you can't blaze a trail and leave a legacy. In Australia, if you're successful, you are resented, not admired and aspired to. In Australia, for example, in the United States, your first language and your last name doesn't mean anything.
Right.
In Australia, if you fail once, you're done. You're cooked. Right? If you go bankrupt once in Australia, No one will ever want to do business with you again. Your neighbors will quietly mock you. It's all over. The thing I love about the United States is you have a look at it, it's the country of unlimited opportunities. Walt Disney went bankrupt twice, almost 3 times. Same story with Henry Ford. Lincoln lost his first 6 elections. P.T. Barnum's first 2 circuses were abject failures. Colonel Sanders had his recipe for fried chicken rejected 1,009 times before he finally got a taker. So there's something about American society that rewards resilience, persistence, a never give up attitude. And I never wanted to conform. I never wanted to go along to get along. I didn't want to live a life of quiet mediocrity characterized by small, pleasant steps.
Right.
I wanted to be an individual. I wanted to...
Independent.
Yeah.
An independent man.
You know...
AKA an alpha male.
Exactly. The best way I describe it, Tyrus, is I wanted to kick butt, not kiss it.
Right.
And in Australia, in order to get ahead, you need to kiss it. In America, in order to get ahead, at the moment, got to kick it.
When you talk about America, that gets me excited about America. Like, man, I might want to go there until I realize I'm there. I think, but you know all this, right? And because you did the research and you wanted to be here. The most dangerous population in America is young men, especially lost, because they have nowhere to go, a ton of young testosterone, no wisdom to guide it, and a systems is saying that you're objectively everything about you is wrong. There's nowhere for them to go. It used to be because at a young age, we groomed in this country, since I'm going to use it because we're going to use it against them later on. We groomed patriotism. Yes. We groomed serve your country, pledge allegiance to the flag. You want to be a part. If going off to another land, defend this country, to fight for this country was one of the greatest honors of being in this country. And we believed it across the board. And now it's, at least on social media, and I think that's the biggest problem, is that our young people's eyes are on the wrong thing, which is the power of social media to convince them that it's a lot bigger than it really is. It's like the Wizard of Oz, and behind the curtain there's all these smokes, and they think it's a bigger reach than it really is. And I always say social media is 10% of 10%, right? But 100% are watching it. Yeah. A lot of people watch for the train wrecks. But unfortunately, our kids are watching it, and they're getting life lessons out of it, and by people who do not have the acumen or should not be teaching any children.
Yeah,
they get sucked. So how do we turn that around? Because misguided young men are where all the problems come. Like, it's just, you can forget about any other group you want, but if you get the young men in this country to believe in something negative, and it's the only way, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there, Tyrus. So basically, I like to say, I mean, it's quite ironic that American brilliance and ingenuity, which created social media, which has transformed our lives, it's quite the irony that it's now coming to bite us back in the backside. Yeah. Because you're right, it is a toxic kind of environment, and young people do get most of their information from social media, and there aren't very many good people that are leading on social media, many positive influences. And then you kind of take that and then you couple it with the fact that out of the Second World War, what really should have been, I think, decided, that the kind of the gripping conclusion should have been that there is evil in the world and we've always got to defeat evil and confront evil. Instead, the academics, the elites, the literati decided the problem was not evil. The problem was patriotism.
Right.
And so there's been this absolute war on patriotism for the last 70 years. If you love your country, if you honor your country, there's something inherently wrong with you. And it is total horse apples. It is absolute BS. There is nothing more natural or more virtuous than loving the country and being grateful to the country that gives you so much opportunity, looks after you, all of that kind of stuff. It's normal to love your family.
It's behaviors we see. You wear your favorite football team's jersey, your baseball team, or your favorite actor. Like, you always want to represent what you envy or
yes.
what you enjoy or what you aspire to be.
Yes, and you hit the nail on the head when you said that young men are the most important group. And they are, because when young men mobilize Tyrus. It is the scariest and most dangerous and most effective group coming together imaginable. When you look at these terrorist groups that terrorize our lives, right? It's young men. When you look at what's going on at the border right now, the most frightening aspect of all, which is really not focused on, is the preponderance of young men.
See, that's all I'm focused on. I see young men who are in military shape come to this country with no guidance. And once that credit card runs out, then what? Then you have them mixing with American citizens across the board, regardless of color, creed, or whatever, that are and this young men in the same boat with no direction. And so now you have a new group coming in who has a little bit of a lead because they're getting some form of funding.
And it's a street fight, right?
Yeah, we're seeing it out here.
Yeah.
Venezuela gangs are crossing with the local street. We're seeing it already starting on the streets now.
Tyrus, you get it better than anyone. A street fight, at the end of the day, boils down to who wants it the most.
Yeah.
Right? And how can we compete? How can our young guys compete with the young guys of these other places that are patriotic, unified, they haven't been told all their lives to curb their ambitions, shelve their dreams, get in the back seat, let women have a turn, you don't count. Listen, it's fantastic that women are doing so well in society. I want that. But if we're going to compete with China, if we're going to compete with all of these other people that don't want America to lead the world, how can we do it with only 50% of the workforce at full capacity? We need to be going 100% on all cylinders. Every part of the American engine needs to be going. And to say that, oh, well, we're kind of going to discount this 50%. It's morally wrong. And we are going to rue the day, Tyrus, that we as a nation, we as a culture went down this path, because young American men are a great treasure and they need to be nurtured. They need to be trained. They need to be the best version of themselves so that us as a society can survive. And let me tell you, you lose America, you lose everything, right? It's civilization.
Here's what scares me a little bit when you talk about young men versus, because we've had what I call first world problems for a long time, which your biggest fear is if you misplace your phone or you can't find your charger.
Yeah.
Right. That's the biggest complaint that I'll hear. Like, I can't find my phone, or so-and-so didn't like my picture of my lunch yesterday on social media, right? Those are the first world problems we got that are the top, that's going around that everyone's talking about. Meanwhile, you've got a group of young men who walked across countries to get here.
Yeah.
And then when they're here, it's game on. And the other group is still going, I just can't find my charger, so I don't really want to compete. That scares me more than anything when I look at readiness, because they're not here to assimilate. Exactly. They're not. You came here to assimilate. You came here for the dream.
I did, yeah.
They're here, and they're so rocking their country's flags that they're supposedly seeking exile from.
Yes.
And they need sanctuary from. But they're rolling their flags.
Yeah.
So that's a complete oxymoron to me, is if you're trying to get away from horrible Venezuela, and you get here, and the first thing you do when you get here is hold up your Venezuelan flag, that's a tell, right? If I'm not...
Big tell.
Like, wait a minute.
You might as well, yeah.
Now, how does that bother you as someone who, I'm assuming, you just didn't fly over from Australia and said, hey, I'm here, where's my citizenship? No, I'm sure you had to jump through quite a few bit of hoops to get to that point. How does that make you feel, knowing that you did it the right way?
Tyrus, every single American should be, and I think overwhelmingly most are, really upset with what's going on at the border. But let me tell you, the group of people that are most pissed off about what's going on at the border are legal immigrants like me. It took me 4.5 years. It cost me $50,000.
Say that again. It cost you how much?
$50,000.
Of your money?
Of my money.
Nobody gave you a credit card with $50,000 on it to pay for your citizenship?
$50,000 just to get a green card. Okay? So then I was in this country for 5 years, having my green card, and then I became a naturalized American citizen. Almost 3 years now. the point is, it took me about 12 years from beginning to end to become a citizen. Not only that, Tyrus, to immigrate, and this is what people don't realise. Do you know that if you have a DUI in your home country, let's say I had a DUI in Australia, a conviction, I'm not allowed to immigrate.
Like done.
Yeah, the US.
So your only route is then to sneak in.
Well,
if that was your, because we have guys coming to this country with rap sheets a mile long.
That's my point, right? And so you need to have a police check. You need to do a medical test. They test to see, you have to have a chest x-ray to prove that you don't have tuberculosis. I had to have, this is the killer, no one realizes this, I had to have, at the time it was 7 vaccines, it's now 8. So the US government mandates that in order to immigrate to the US, within 6 months of that immigration, you need to have 7 vaccines. It's now 8 because it includes the COVID vaccine. That's mandated to immigrate to the US. You have to have mumps, measles, rubella, tetanus, the cold. They're listed on the official government website. Is anyone asking these guys how many vaccines they've had?
No.
So it's really, really hard for a good person to come the right way, and it's really, really easy for a bad person to come the wrong way.
Because I think it's costing them $10,000 with the cartels to get a van service to the gate.
Yeah.
What of course they're indentured servants, and I'm sure they want them to come over here and do laundry and stuff.
Well, that's
not push drugs and sex trafficking and whatever they owe the cartels to get here.
The biggest thing is, Tyrus, and this is why I supported Donald Trump from 2015 when he came down the escalator 16th of June. I was with him, and I've been with him constantly for the last 7-8 years. And what I love about him is that he understands the power of strength. It's, again, something that the left have villainized, right? A strong man loves...
Well, they don't want individual achievement. And to get individual achievement, you have to have strength.
You have to have strength.
You have to have it.
Because this whole border stuff is because weakness is provocative. It was actually Rumsfeld that coined that phrase. Weakness is provocative. And it's true, right? If you see that someone is weak, you're going to test them out. You're going to see what you can get away with. Now, if you have strength, for example, if the US president came out and said, we will control who comes into this country and the circumstances under which they come. If you come to our country illegally, you will never, ever get to stay. We will send you home. We'll either put you in an aeroplane or we'll put you in a detention facility, and it'll be on our timeline to determine when we get to you. It would stop the border overnight. You know how I know? Because, first of all, Trump did that in large part. And second of all, it was done in Australia. It was done in Australia. We had people coming by boat. And so the Australian government, it all happened under a democratic leftist leader and administration, had a conservative guy come in and he said, right, the boats are going to end because I'm turning back the boats. And if somehow, miraculously, the Navy doesn't get you and you do get here and we get you, you're never going to come back. We're going to put you on this offshore processing center, this island. You could be there for up to 2 years.
Right.
So in other words, there's a
real risk.
Exactly, for the risk.
Obviously, we're not having that here. How frustrating, since you brought up President Trump, the executive orders that were just boom, 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 that laid it out. When you hear the current administration and someone who has worked with the previous administration say that, it's up to Congress. How much does that boil your blood when you literally... I've noticed that people now talk to news TV the same way you would talk to your favorite team losing in a game they should be winning.
Yeah.
They're screaming at the TV.
Yeah.
And they're pulling their hair out of the TV. Is that one of those moments for you where you're just like, fellas, I could literally go run the tape of him sign the executive orders if you want me to show you how to do it? Like, is it insane for you to see that?
Tyrus, there might even be a crack on my 75-inch Samsung flat screen. It is incredibly frustrating because the role of president is so much about symbolism as well, right? And it's about sending a message. And you can easily send a message, whether it's signing an executive order, whether it's speaking like Trump does, and like I like to do as well.
Direct.
With what we call truthful hyperbole.
Right.
In other words, everything you say is true, but you're kind of amplifying it to really get a message, to really be heard.
Right.
And that's something that the left just have zero time for. But at the end of the day, you know, Tyrus, I came to America to give, not take. I came to join the place, not complain about it. And I want those kind of people come into this country to make it even better than what it already is, or to at least continue it at its greatness. But unfortunately, we've got people coming in now that don't contribute to American society.
I'm not interested in assimilating.
And it's another reason of government.
Another purpose.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate. Maybe this is the message that President Biden and his administration want to send at the border. And we just need to just understand that this is how it's going to be. This is how our borders look under a Democratic administration, not what we saw, which is surprising because Obama's administration was very similar to Trump's in terms of the border. But now it's a complete open door policy. Do you think that would be a better pill to swallow, even though it's not the way that as conservatives or as American citizens or as patriots we look how our borders should be? If they at least gave us that. Because I always have a theory, don't bullshit me. I can take bad news, okay? Tell me bad news. Don't piss down my back and tell me it's rain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can take bad news. It's the bullshit and the gaslighting I can't stand. I think most Americans like that. If they came out and said, this is how we want to run our border. This is how we're going to... We don't like it, but as like, okay, cool. Now I'm going to vote differently. You think that's the hook? That they're afraid because they're coming to this country with Biden shirts on. That's a tell. They have Biden shirts on when they're across the border. It's a celebration because they know our laws better than we do.
Tyrus, I wish they were just honest about it, like you just described. I wish they'd say, listen, we want to open up the border. We think it's the right thing morally to do, but they don't. Instead, they say, well, this is because of Trump. This is not our problem. This is not our fault. They don't even care. They don't even go down there. And so it is very frustrating that they're so disingenuous about it. They should own it. They should say, listen, we're Democrats. We're leftists. And in 2024, that means, unlike previous administrations, unlike previous comments from Joe Biden, you know, you go pull back the tape, 2009.
He was anti-gay marriage and everything else less than a decade ago.
Yeah. And the same with the border. Yeah. We've got a border.
He had one of the toughest crime bills in the history of this country.
And now look, every city is going crazy. So it is a very, very sad state of affairs that the Democrats are where they are at. But the least they could do, just as a courtesy to their fellow citizens, is to say, this is who we are, this is what we stand for. If you like it, vote for us. If you don't like it, don't vote for us. That's why it's so important, I think, this year, because now that we've got this happening, Tyrus, if a strong message is not sent through this election, this is just going to become de facto. It's just going to be
everyday life.
Yeah.
Okay, we had that. You had the video of them bum rushing our soldiers, right?
Yeah.
Our soldiers aren't going to arm themselves to be soldiers. Soldiers aren't cops. Okay, cops are there to keep the peace and protect property. They're trained for that. That's not what a soldier's trained for.
No.
He's there to either kick you off or keep you off. Mm-hmm. Like that's his role. He's not there to solve the issue. That's not what their training is. When you see that video, I can't help but think if President Trump were to ever ask me like, hey, how would you do this campaign? My opening video, wherever I go, would be that. And it's powerful. But here's the problem. Republicans, we don't know how to play with a lead. We will fuck this up. Like that was a alley-oop to any American who ever had a complaint about the border. That's the border in a nutshell, what we're looking at right now. Somehow, some way, which the numbers right now, Biden is like hemorrhaging. He's horrible. They're worried about JFK's son running now. They have all these issues. I'm just looking around going, which Republican's going to screw it up?
You're right.
Who is going to decide this is the week to go after women issues? Who is going to decide instead of like, shut up, fellas. We don't need to argue about the Supreme Court right now. Yeah. Just everybody who votes with an elephant, shut up. Like nobody do anything right now. Yeah. But do you have that fear like I have fear?
Well, of course.
I look around going, who's going to do it?
Yeah. Listen, Republicans do have a very disturbing ability to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yes.
Right? And it's sad. They are often their own worst enemy. Keeps me up at night, I'll be honest with you, Tyrus. It really does keep me up at night because if the election was held tomorrow, I think Donald Trump would win.
Oh, he wins in a landslide.
The problem is
it's not tomorrow.
220 plus days away.
Yes.
Right? And there is a lot of time to F it up. In those, I mean, a day is a long time.
And I'm not talking about President Trump messing it up.
No.
His game is different.
Yeah.
He's a much different.
He's on. He's
not taking the bait like he used to.
Yeah. No, I know, but I'm worried about people screwing it up for him.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's a lot of potential for that. And Republicans have just got to, they've really got to tighten their belts with what they're talking about. It's got to be crime, law and order, how much money is in your pocket, how safe do you feel with the world? The world's on fire. It's such an easy sell, Tyrus. When you look at what the world was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, forget COVID obviously being the misnomer there. But I mean, it was gas.
But even if you want to just make the argument, even if you went back to Obama's administration, we didn't have the weakness from like we have from this administration to the point where everyone's emboldened. We can get into policies we didn't like, not like, but we stomached it. None of us, life was changed forever with some of the policies. But this stuff with the Biden administration is so far, it's not even democratic in my opinion. I think it's socialism, it's Marxism.
It is.
I don't feel like it's anything close to what the Democratic, because we're not going to win all the time. Like here's a perfect example. John McCain, rest his soul, and Barack Obama. When I was making that decision to vote, either way, I wasn't going to get some things I wanted, but I'm not going to die with either selection. It might not be, my tax might be a little higher for the next 4 years or whatever, but I didn't feel like the seams were coming off the hinges with this election. Since Biden has gotten in, and I always gave, and I'm a ball and strikes guy. I just call it like I see it. I agree sometimes, I don't agree, and other times I speak on it, because I feel like you have to police your own party. Like it's easy to point out what they do. I always focus about what we're doing. When you look at the way this has changed to where it's socialism opposed to Democrats, I think that is what's going to make the independents and a lot of independent women voters vote Trump. And I think we're seeing that because they're like, I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have success in America first than everybody else first and me second, because it's the voters, the base of voters that are voting, that they're taking advantage of the most.
Yes.
In my opinion.
Tyrus, I think it's a pretty astute analysis. Look, the only thing I'd say is I do kind of see that this Biden administration as the third term of Obama. I think the country was not where Obama needed it to be. I think he was kind of chomping at the bit to kind of get more socialist, to be more leftist. But he knew that he couldn't kind of carry... I mean, you look at Bill Clinton, for example, right? I mean, Bill Clinton today and Bill Clinton when he was president, it's night and day. Now, if Bill Clinton was president today and he was back in his 40s, how different would he be?
Considered Republican.
Exactly.
He would. Yes. He would not have support from the left at all.
No way at all.
And I'm not talking about the Lewinsky bullshit. I'm talking about just policy.
Just policy.
And I would argue it's because of Biden's condition that there's a lot of chefs in the White House
exactly
who are making these decisions. I feel like it's the progressives that are making the decisions.
Tyrus,
because at least Obama would know when to go, we need to chill out.
Tyrus.
These guys, they're just going for it. It's like AOC's running the country. And it feels like that type of crazy weirdness, policies that make zero sense, hires that are out of this world. You were part of the ministry. Every hire that President Trump had was under scrutiny, was vetted to death. But none of them were ever arrested for stealing luggage. You know what I'm saying? None of them were taking pictures of crazy sexual positions with what we assumed were 18-year-old boys, but we don't know. Like some of the stuff that we've seen, sex inside the White House, like cocaine, and it's all just kind of like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Where if that would have happened just a few years ago,
totally different.
It would have been, but any one of those things were actual real things that happened.
Yeah.
And I guess what bothers me is you made this point earlier, and it keeps coming back in my head. You said that you're more disappointed in immigrants who came over the right way that aren't saying anything. But isn't it the same thing? The same onus could be put on moderate Democrats who aren't saying anything. They're just going with the flow. Like, don't you think we should hear more voices from the Democratic side saying, hey, this isn't right? Or what are we talking about here? We're more worried about pronouns than making sure the kids have hot meals at school. Like, what are we doing? Do you see anybody on that side finally saying enough?
No, and that's because moderate Democrats are in incredibly short supply. They as a breed, they barely exist. When I was growing up and learning about American politics, I learned about blue dog Democrats.
Right.
And that's really
I guess maybe Bill Maher, but his base is turning on him. He's considered, and even Jon Stewart, his big return, and he's finds himself, he's arguing with his own side.
Social media has advanced the leftist agenda very, very quickly, at a speed far in excess of what we could possibly have ever expected. It's why, for example, Joe Biden is able to do things that Barack Obama, even 8-9 years ago, couldn't do.
No.
And the Democrats have got Joe Biden exactly where they want him. Demented and in the White House.
Yep.
Because they're able to kind of pull the puppet strings.
Whoever's writing that damn notebook that they sit at the press conference
right?
is the president of the United States.
Shake this hand.
Yes.
Answer this question. And that's what they do. And it's all Obama people. I believe it's Valerie Jarrett, it's Eric Holder, it's all those
They've
guys.
all graduated to where they're now the shot callers.
Right, exactly.
But they weren't elected by the people.
Correct, they weren't. But Joe provides a nice little front for them, and they're milking this for all that it's worth.
Because all they have to do is remind everybody, Joe's bad, but he's not that guy. Because he's going to steal democracy.
Yeah.
Because he did it the last time.
Yeah. Exactly. But you know what's amazing? What everyone doesn't talk about, Tyrus, they boarded up all of New York, all of Washington, all of these major cities. They weren't doing it because Joe Biden was going to win. They were doing it in case Trump won. And, and if anyone thinks that there wouldn't have been something of a greater magnitude than the 6th of January by the left, given what we experienced in the summer of 2020, there would have been.
Well, and I'm trying to end this on positive, but isn't it funny and this is why I always think the progressives show you their handbook by their attacks. Because everything they attacked him on, whether they Russian collusion, this, that, whatever, we're finding that, no, it was actually
projection.
It was a projection of what's coming because their collusion wasn't with Russia. It was with another country that's having an issue with Russia. All their moves are playing it. Now, they keep saying Trump would never give up the White House. They kept saying that. No, he didn't want to shake your hand because he had and here's the deal. I'm not making excuses. Some of his behavior, he needed to be better. But when you spent your whole presidency with one group who's every day saying that you're a liar, you stole the election, you're unfit for office, you're all whatever the case, you remember more than I forget. You forgot more than I can remember. And he sounds a little bit bitter. I felt it was justified. But I also, when I got stopped thinking about him, was, listen, they're showing us exactly what they're going to do. So my prediction is the issue with relinquishing the office isn't going to be a Republican one. I think if President Trump wins the election, the Joe Biden administration, I don't think they're just going to give, oh, here you go. I'm calling it now because they kept telling us so much that's what he was going to do. And it seems that everything they said that he was going to do, they end up doing. His kids were dirty. Nope.
It was the others.
It was the others.
Tyrus, look, here's why I'm hopeful. I've been a student of American history for a long time. And you have a look from the early defeats by Britain in the War of Independence, to the loss of the Philippines, to Pearl Harbor, to the days following September 11, whenever America has been under attack, whenever freedom has been shoved up against a corner wall in a room, America has always emerged bigger and stronger and better than before. Alexis de Tocqueville, the famous French nobleman who came out here in the 17th century.
An educated man, ladies and gentlemen.
He wrote in his book, Democracy in America, that the true genius of Americans lay in their ability to repair their faults. He noted the, quote, uncanny propensity of these people to recorrect a cultural trajectory. Then Sir Winston Churchill came out and said that America always does the right thing after exhausting every other option.
Exactly.
But there is a boomerang spirit. There is a resilience very deep in the American psyche. And America always corrects course. So we saw what happened with Obama out of nowhere. No, I mean, I believed it, but most people didn't think Donald Trump was going to win.
Nobody did. He didn't even think.
And then Trump won.
It was a joke. People laughed. And then when that was a joke, then they were like, wait a minute, he's showing us things that that we only assumed about.
Yeah. So I'm expecting, I think 2020 was such a strange election. I think that was an anathema, and I think that 2024 is going to see another sharp turn back to Trump, back to pro-America, back to an anti-globalist kind of sentiment. And that's going to mean, Tyrus, that we're going to have a lot of opportunity to do this over the next 4 years.
There's always a line in the sand, and I'll end it with this, because my line in the sand, when I said America's had enough, ironically, it wasn't attacking our women, it wasn't attacking alpha males, it's when they fuck with our beer. And when they messed with the beer, everything changed. Like overnight, it was like America has a line.
Yeah.
And that line to where everyone was tolerating, like, oh yeah, it's a little weird, but cool. Oh yeah, fine. He, she, they, cool, whatever. Yeah, that's cool. Yep, there's 47 genders. Yeah, that's cool. Wait, what are you doing with our beer? Oh, nope, that's it. Game on.
Done.
Kid Rock, hit the music. Like it just changed overnight.
Yeah.
That's to me my line in the sand. Do you see your line in the sand?
Absolutely.
Where's the line where this thing changed? Because I feel like it's changing.
Yeah, it's changing. I do think the Bud Light treatment, as it's become known, was a great display of what I was talking about. It was the American people saying, right, that is enough.
Yeah,
right?
we're
are
done.
Not going to put up with this shit anymore. This cannot go on. And they stood up. They took a stand, which is the most American thing of all, by the way, taking a stand. And that's why I'm very sanguine about the prospects of the country, Tyrus. This is the best country in the world. And I think it's going to remain that way, much to the chagrin of the Chinese and the Russians. And
the first world problems.
Yeah.
Well, they like first world problems. They don't want real problems.
No.
They don't want missed meal cramps. They don't want to worry about some guy coming in with an M60 going to take over their land or kick them out of their stuff. Their problem, his biggest thing is like, is there going to be a long line to drive through a Starbucks?
Hey.
Like that, unfortunately, but that's one of the pleasures of having a country like ours, so where you and I can come on and complain about it and not be dragged off in a room like this.
Correct.
And you hear two shots.
Yes.
And the janitor cleaning up and no one saying anything.
Yeah.
Because we're in America.
We don't want that.
Where can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you?
My website is nickadamsusa.com, nickadamsusa.com. I'm on the Mount Rushmore of Twitter, Tyrus, as you know.
Yes.
So you can follow me at Nick Adams in USA, at Nick Adams in USA. Facebook is Nick Adams in America, and Instagram is at Nick A1.
So you are all about that.
Everywhere.
Stars and stripes.
Alpha males and America. Can't find anything more symbiotic, except maybe Tyrus and Nick.
Yeah, and a couple of beers, you got to call, man. Anytime.
It's got to be a Yingling.
I'm kind of. Right now, I'm doing the dark lagers at the moment.
Okay, well, we can work with that as long as it's ice cold and
got to be
domestic.
cold. Yes, I'm with that.
Two masculine guys.
That's fair.
Great.
I'm with that.
Let's do it.
Appreciate your time, boss.
It's been a pleasure.